What if I told you that the world's first true global economy didn't begin in London, didn't begin in New York, but in a humid port city in Southeast Asia in 1571? The place was Manila. Long before globalization became a buzzword, Manila quietly became the center of a system that linked Asia, the Americas, and Europe into one continuous economic loop. Silver mined in the New World flowed west. Chinese silk and porcelain flowed east. And for the first time in history, every major populated continent was economically connected. To understand how this happened, you have to follow three stories, unfolding at the same time, on three different continents. The first story begins in China, in the late 1500s. The Ming Dynasty was rebuilding after devastating wars with the Mongols. The empire needed stability, revenue, and control. So the government made a radical decision known as the Single Whip tax reform. From that point on, all major taxes had to be paid in silver, not grain, not paper money, not copper coins, silver. Overnight, China developed an enormous hunger for the metal. But there was a problem. China didn't have enough silver mines to meet this demand. As a result, silver became twice as valuable in China as it was almost anywhere else on Earth. If you could buy silver cheaply in one place and sell it for double in another, you'd move mountains to make that trade happen. That brings us to the second story, across the Pacific in the Americas. In 1545, Spanish explorers stumbled upon the richest silver deposit ever discovered at Potosi. Sitting more than 15,000 feet above sea level, Potosi became a silver-producing machine. At its peak, the city grew to around 150,000 people, rivaling the largest cities in Europe. Spanish ships hauled silver out of the Americas by the ton. Europe flooded with New World silver. But Spain had a problem of its own. Asian merchants didn't want European goods, they wanted silver. And that brings us to the third story. The Philippines. Spain had been trying for decades to reach Asia by sailing west. Ferdinand Magellan tried in 1521, but his route was brutal and impractical for trade. Everything changed in 1565 when a Spanish navigator named Andres de Urdaneta discovered a return route across the Pacific by sailing north toward Japan. Ships could catch the Curaçao current, which carried them eastward to Mexico. This discovery made regular trans-Pacific trade possible for the first time. With this route secured, Spain founded Manila in 1571. Suddenly, everything clicked. Silver from Mexico and Bolivia could sail west to Manila. Chinese merchants could bring silk, porcelain, and luxury goods south to the same port. Manila became the meeting point of the world's most valuable commodities. But Spain couldn't trade directly with China, so they relied on intermediaries. Chinese merchants, known as the Sanglis, mostly from Fujian province. These traders settled in a district called Parian, just outside the Spanish-walled city of Intramuros. Chinese junks arrived in Manila Bay loaded with silk, porcelain, lacquerware, spices, gems, ivory, and textiles. The Sanglis sold these goods to Spanish merchants, who paid almost entirely in silver. Both the Spanish and Chinese governments tried to control or ban this trade. It didn't work. The profits were too large. Smuggling exploded. In the early 1600s, observers estimated that 1/3 of all silk produced in China was being illegally exported through places like Manila. A roll of silk could sell for 10 times its original value in Mexico. By the early 17th century, about 30,000 Chinese merchants lived in Manila. The city became one of the most diverse places on Earth, home to Spaniards, Chinese, Filipinos, Mexicans, Japanese, Persians, Africans, and Europeans from across the continent. Manila wasn't just a colony, it was the engine room of the world's first global economy, and the ships that powered it were unlike anything seen before. The system that connected the world ran on ships, and not just any ships. They were called the Manila galleons, and they were some of the largest, toughest vessels of their time. Many weighed over 1,000 tons, with some reaching nearly 2,000 tons. They were built in the Philippines, using tropical hardwoods like teak and malavi that resisted rot, parasites, and even cannon fire. Sailcloth came from local weaving centers. Rigging was made from Manila hemp, which handled salt water better than European fibers. Building one galleon required thousands of workers. Many were forced laborers. Crews were largely Filipino sailors, often press-ganged into service. Officers were usually Spanish. The voyage itself was brutal. Each year, galleons left Manila in June or July, navigating dangerous straits before sailing north toward Japan, then east across the Pacific. The journey to Mexico took 6 months. Food spoiled, water turned foul. Scurvy killed hundreds. When ships finally reached Acapulco, survivors stumbled ashore after half a year at sea. Pirates waited along the route. Capturing a single galleon could make a crew rich for life. What made the risk worthwhile was the cargo. Eastbound ships carried Chinese silk in every form imaginable: brocades, velvets, tapestries, clothing, and bedding. Porcelain filled the holds. Spices, gems, medicines, perfumes, cotton fabrics, and luxury goods from across Asia packed every inch of space. When the galleons arrived in Acapulco, massive trade fairs followed. Goods spread across Mexico, then crossed the Atlantic to Spain and Europe. Westbound voyages carried one thing above all else: silver. A single galleon could transport up to 3 million silver pesos. Between 1565 and 1821, historians estimate that around 400 million silver pesos passed through Manila. In some years, nearly 94,000 kilograms of silver flowed into China. That silver didn't stay in Manila. It spread across Asia. The Mexican silver peso became an international currency, accepted in China, Japan, India, and Southeast Asia, long before the dollar or the pound. This coin functioned as the world's first global money, and the impact went far beyond economics. Asian goods transformed. European tastes, American crops like chili peppers, tomatoes, and cacao entered Asian cuisines. Chinese artists in Manila crafted Christian religious statues using Buddhist artistic styles. The first Chinatown outside Asia appeared in Mexico City. Modeled after Manila's Chinese Quarter, Manila became a cultural crossroads unlike anything seen before. Historians Dennis O'Flynn and Arturo Giraldes later argued that this system marked the true birth of globalization. Not trade between regions, but sustained, continuous exchange connecting every major continent. That system lasted 250 years. It ended suddenly. In 1821, Mexico won independence from Spain. The flow of silver stopped. The final Manila galleon was seized on arrival. Without silver, the trade collapsed. The world's first global economy vanished almost overnight. But its legacy remained modern. Globalization didn't begin in Europe's financial capitals. It began in Manila, where silver, silk, ships, and suffering quietly connected the world for the first time.